I swear, it was just a mistake. That's what I told her. My voice was steady, almost too steady. If you weren't looking closely, you might have believed me. But Sarah, my wife of 11 years, was looking closely. Her fingers were clenched around the edge of the kitchen counter, white-knuckled. The silence between us was thick, suffocating. I started, but Sarah cut me off. Stop. Her voice was eerily calm, and that was what scared me the most. Just stop. She turned away, pressing the heels of her palms against her eyes, as if trying to erase what she had just seen. It was my phone. A single notification. That was all it took. I should have deleted it. I should have been more careful. But most of all, I should have never started lying in the first place. Sarah inhaled sharply. Tell me the truth, Adam. I swallowed hard. There was no easy way out of this. But the truth? No. The truth would destroy everything. So I did what I always did. I lied. It started 6 months ago. Work had been slow. My business, our business, technically, wasn't doing great, and I didn't want Sarah to worry. I told her we were fine, that money wasn't an issue, that we weren't drowning in bills, that the stress eating away at me was just a rough patch. At first, I justified it. What was the harm in sparing her some anxiety? But one lie required another, and another. I took out a loan, without telling her. Then I covered the gaps with a side job she didn't know about, something that, in hindsight, was worse than the debt itself. And now? Now, she had found something. A piece of the truth. Not all of it. Not yet. Sarah turned back to me, holding up my phone. The screen was still lit. The message was there, staring at us both. A bank notification. Another withdrawal from an account she didn't know existed. I saw the exact moment she connected the dots. Her lips parted slightly, her brows drawing together. A slow, painful realization washed over her face, and then, just as quickly, it vanished. A wall went up. Sarah was smart. She wouldn't explode. She wouldn't scream. She would go cold. This isn't the first time, is it? She asked, voice hollow. I could lie again. Say it was the first time, the only time. Say it was nothing. But I had been lying for so long, the truth was starting to slip through the cracks. I opened my mouth, closed it again, and in that moment of hesitation, Sarah knew. She put my phone down carefully, like it was something dirty. You know what's funny, Adam? She whispered. I'm not even surprised. That stung more than if she had screamed. She turned, walking out of the kitchen, heading straight for the bedroom. Panic clawed at my chest. I could feel it. This wasn't just a fight. This was something breaking. And for the first time, I realized. I wasn't sure if I could fix it. Sarah didn't slam the bedroom door. That would have been easier to handle. Instead, she closed it quietly, deliberately, with the kind of restraint that felt far more dangerous than shouting. I stood in the kitchen, staring at the door, my pulse hammering in my throat. Our son Noah's cartoons playing in the living room, the sound of his laughter cutting through the thick silence like a cruel reminder of everything I was about to lose. I needed to think. Fast. If I gave Sarah too much time alone, she'd start digging. And if she dug too deep, she'd find everything. The loan. The missing money. The real reason behind the late nights and unplanned business trips. I took a step forward, but before I could reach the bedroom, the door opened again. Sarah stepped out, holding her phone, her expression blank. Who is Lucas Carter? My stomach turned to ice. She must have found the transaction history. The payments were under his name. A fake name. A buffer between me and the real mess I had gotten myself into. But if she was asking, that meant she had already looked him up. She wasn't asking out of curiosity. She was confirming what she already knew. Sarah, She held up a hand. Think carefully before you say another word. I froze. She wasn't giving me room for another excuse. No half-truths, no quick explanations to smooth things over. She wanted the whole thing, and she wanted it now. I could have given in. Maybe if I had, things wouldn't have spiraled the way they did. Maybe she would have understood why I did it, why I had no choice. But I had been lying for so long that the truth felt impossible to say out loud. So I did what I always did. I don't know what you're talking about. Sarah exhaled sharply, shaking her head. That's your answer? She let out a dry, humorless laugh. All right. She turned and walked past me toward the coat rack. My brain was still scrambling to catch up when I realized she was putting on her shoes. Where are you going? My voice came out sharper than I intended. Sarah didn't look at me. To get some air. She was lying. I knew because I had done it myself 100 times. That wasn't the voice of someone who needed a walk. That was the voice of someone who had already made up their mind about something. I stepped closer. Sarah, don't do anything stupid. She finally looked up at me, and the way she stared made my chest tighten. I think we passed stupid a long time ago. I could have stopped her. I could have grabbed her wrist, blocked the door, begged her to listen. But Noah was in the next room, and if this was about to turn into something worse, I didn't want him to hear it. So I let her go. I watched as she stepped outside, got into her car, and drove away. The moment she was gone, I grabbed my phone and unlocked it. My hands were shaking as I scrolled through my recent texts, searching for the last message I sent under Lucas Carter's name. The deal is off. Do not contact me again. I had sent it 2 nights ago. There was no response, no missed calls. But that didn't mean I was safe. My mind raced through every possibility. Sarah was smart. She wouldn't just sit with what she found, she would keep looking, keep asking questions. If she contacted the wrong person, if she pushed too hard, things could get worse. Much worse. I dialed her number. It rang twice before going straight to voicemail. I tried again. Same result. I took a deep breath and tried to think rationally. Maybe she was just driving. Maybe she needed time. Maybe she wasn't doing what I feared the most. But deep down, I knew better. I opened a different message thread, one I had been trying to ignore for weeks. A number with no name attached to it. The last message from them was short and direct. We need to talk. I hesitated for only a second before typing my response. Not now. A red receipt appeared almost instantly. Then another message. Too late. I stared at the screen, heart pounding. The weight of my lies was finally crashing down. And this time, I wasn't the only one in danger. I didn't waste time calling again. Sarah wasn't going to pick up. She had made her decision the moment she walked out, and I had no idea what that decision was. My mind cycled through every worst-case scenario. If she went to the bank, she'd see the withdrawals, the ones I couldn't explain away. If she called someone, anyone who knew more than she did, things would spiral out of my control. And if she somehow made contact with the wrong person, the person I had been trying to keep at a distance, then this was no longer about a broken marriage. I scrolled back to the message. Too late. I typed quickly. What do you mean? The reply came in seconds. She's already looking. You need to stop her. My pulse slammed in my ears. My fingers hovered over the screen, but I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how much time I had or what Sarah had found. I only knew that whatever I had been trying to bury was about to be dragged into the light. I grabbed my keys and walked straight to the living room. Noah was still sitting on the floor, watching TV, completely unaware of the weight pressing down on me. His backpack was leaning against the couch, his shoes kicked off haphazardly. Sarah was supposed to take him to her mother's tomorrow, just for the weekend. That wasn't going to happen now. I crouched in front of him, keeping my voice steady. Hey, bud, do you want to stay at Uncle Mike's tonight? He tore his eyes from the screen. Why? Just for fun. Like a sleepover. He hesitated, then shrugged. Okay. I exhaled slowly. Mike wouldn't ask questions. He'd let Noah stay over without pressing me about why. That gave me a few hours, maybe less, to find Sarah and fix this before it got worse. I helped Noah get his things together, walked him to the car, and drove straight to Mike's without calling ahead. He was in the middle of making dinner when he opened the door, looking surprised to see us. Hey, he said. What's going on? I kept my voice light. Sarah needed some time to herself. Thought Noah could hang out here tonight. Mike glanced between me and Noah, picking up on the fact that something wasn't right, but he didn't push. Yeah, of course. He reached out and ruffled Noah's hair. You want pizza? Noah grinned. Yeah. I gave him a quick hug, then met Mike's gaze. I'll be back later. Mike didn't ask where I was going. He just nodded. As soon as I was back in the car, I called Sarah again. Voicemail. I gripped the wheel, trying to think. She wasn't home. She wasn't answering. Where would she go? If she wanted answers, real answers, she'd go straight to the source. I checked the bank app on my phone. Last transaction, ATM withdrawal. Downtown. I didn't think. I just drove. The ATM was outside a convenience store, a few blocks away from the main road. I parked across the street and scanned the area, looking for her car. Nothing. I checked my phone again, scrolling through the call log, then stopped. A number I didn't recognize. She had called someone. I copied the number, pasted it into a search bar. No name. No details. Just a city. But I knew exactly who it belonged to. My stomach twisted. If she had called him, she had already crossed a line she couldn't step back from. I pulled up another number, one I had saved under something harmless, something that wouldn't raise questions. It rang once, then twice. Then a voice answered. "You're late." I forced my voice to stay even. "Where is she?" A pause. Then, calmly, "Come see me. Let's talk." The call ended. I gripped the phone, staring at the blank screen. This wasn't about lies anymore. This was about what happened when you ran out of them. Sarah had made the worst possible call. She hadn't gone to the bank, hadn't gone to a friend or her mother. She had gone straight to them. I didn't know what she had said or how much she had figured out, but it didn't matter. That number wasn't just some faceless contact buried in my phone. It belonged to someone I had spent the last 6 months trying to keep at a safe distance. Someone who didn't do favors, didn't forgive mistakes, and didn't let people walk away clean. If Sarah had told them the wrong thing, if she had asked the wrong question, this wasn't about me fixing a lie anymore. This was about making sure she got out of this in one piece. I drove fast, taking the back streets to avoid traffic. The meeting place wasn't some abandoned warehouse or alleyway. It was a quiet cafe in a part of town where people didn't ask questions. The kind of place where business was conducted with smiles, where everything looked normal until you realized just how many people sitting at the tables weren't really there for the coffee. I parked a block away, scanning the sidewalk as I approached. No sign of Sarah. That didn't mean she hadn't been here. It just meant she wasn't now. Inside, the air smelled like burned espresso. A few customers sat at tables, heads down, phones in hand. A man sat in the back booth, alone. Mid-40s, neatly dressed, reading a newspaper like he had all the time in the world. He didn't look up as I approached, but I knew he had seen me the moment I walked in. I slid into the seat across from him. "I wasn't expecting a call from your wife," he said, still looking at the paper. "What did she say?" He turned the page, as if the conversation was casual. "She wanted to know who Lucas Carter was. Said she had a transaction history that didn't add up." He finally looked at me, folding the newspaper and setting it aside. "I don't like surprises, Adam." I kept my hands flat on the table, forcing myself to stay calm. "Where is she?" "She left before I could find out if she was a problem." I gritted my teeth. That wasn't an answer. "Did you tell her anything?" He smiled slightly. "Do I look like someone who volunteers information?" Sarah had walked away from this conversation alive, but that didn't mean she was safe. If she was still digging, if she was still trying to put the pieces together, it was only a matter of time before she found something worse. I needed to find her before she did. I stood to leave, but he reached out, gripping my wrist. "I did some checking after she called. You told me you were out, that you handled things." He leaned in slightly, lowering his voice. "But if she's still asking questions, that means you lied to me." I met his gaze without flinching. "I'll take care of it." He held my wrist a second longer, as if testing my resolve, then released it. "For your sake, I hope so." I walked out without looking back. As soon as I was outside, I pulled out my phone and checked Sarah's location. We hadn't shared locations in years, but I knew how to find her. Bank alerts, calls, the places she would go when she was upset. I checked the most recent transaction. A gas station 3 miles away. I drove with one hand on the wheel, the other gripping my phone, dialing her number again. Straight to voicemail. The gas station was empty except for a single car parked near the air pump. Hers. The sight of it made my stomach drop. She hadn't gone home. She hadn't gone to her mother's. She was waiting for something or someone. I pulled up next to her, killing the engine. She was in the driver's seat, staring at her phone. When she saw me, she locked the screen and rolled down the window. "Don't," she said before I could speak. I gripped the edge of her door. "We need to talk." Her eyes were red like she had been crying, but her expression was cold. "Talk about what? About the fake name? The money? Or the fact that I just had a conversation with a man who acted like he knew exactly what I was talking about?" I swallowed hard. "I can explain." "Then do it." The words were there, ready to spill, but the moment I told her, the moment I gave her the truth, I couldn't take it back. She would know everything, and there would be no way to control what she did with it. I hesitated. She let out a breath that sounded like she had been holding it in for hours. That's what I thought. She reached for the gear shift, but I stepped in front of the car. "Sarah, you don't understand." "Then make me understand." She gripped the wheel. "Because from where I'm sitting, this isn't just about money. This isn't some bad financial decision. This is bigger, isn't it?" I didn't answer. Her grip tightened. "Are we in danger?" I forced myself to hold her gaze. "I am." She inhaled sharply. "And now I am too, aren't I?" She wasn't asking. She already knew. I looked over my shoulder, scanning the street, the gas station, the parked cars. No one else was here, but I didn't trust that to mean anything. If someone had followed her, if someone had followed me. We can fix this, I said quickly. But we need to leave. Now. She hesitated, glancing down at her phone again. Who were you waiting for? I asked, dread curling in my stomach. She didn't answer. A car turned onto the street, headlights washing over us. A slow, deliberate approach. Sarah looked at me. Too late. The car slowed as it approached, its headlights flooding the pavement. I stepped closer to Sarah's window, but she wasn't looking at me anymore. Her fingers tightened around the wheel, her phone still clutched in her other hand. She had called someone. Whether it was for help or answers, I didn't know. But I knew one thing. Whoever was in that car wasn't just passing by. I moved fast. I yanked open her door, grabbed her wrist, and pulled. She resisted, twisting out of my grip. What are you doing? We're leaving. She pulled back. I'm not going anywhere with you until you tell me what's happening. The car rolled to a stop a few feet away. The engine idled. The tinted window on the driver's side rolled down, slow, deliberate. A man sat behind the wheel, watching us. No expression, no words. Just waiting. Sarah followed my gaze, her breath hitching. Who did you call? My voice was low, urgent. She didn't answer. The man in the car reached for something. I didn't wait to find out what. I grabbed Sarah's arm, pulling her away from the car and toward mine. She struggled for half a second before realizing the situation had shifted from questions to survival. She ran. We reached my car, and I shoved her into the passenger seat, slamming the door shut. As I ran around to the driver's side, I heard the other car's door open. I got in, locked the doors, and peeled out of the gas station before they could follow. Sarah was breathing hard beside me, one hand gripping the dashboard. What the hell was that? I didn't answer. I kept my foot on the gas, watching the rearview mirror. The car hadn't moved yet. They weren't chasing us. Not yet. She turned to me. Adam, talk to me. I kept my eyes on the road, checking every intersection, every turn. Where did you get that number? Her expression hardened. It was in the bank records. You think I wasn't going to look up where our money was going? You don't understand what you just walked into. Then explain it to me. She grabbed my arm, nails digging in. Who the hell was that? I clenched the wheel, debating how much I could tell her. How much I should. Debt, I said finally. A kind you don't come back from if you don't pay. Her grip loosened. What did you do? I checked the mirror again. No sign of the car. I took a sharp turn, heading toward the one place I knew they wouldn't follow. I was drowning, Sarah. The business was failing, and I needed money. Fast. I took a loan, but not from a bank. Not from anywhere that does paperwork. It was supposed to be a short-term thing. I'd pay it back in a few months, no problem. Her voice was quiet now. But you didn't. I let out a sharp breath. No. She stared out the window, piecing it together. So you took out another one, didn't you? I nodded once. And another. Her shoulders stiffened. How much? The number sat heavy in my throat. I didn't say it. She turned to me, demanding. How much, Adam? 300,000. She inhaled sharply. Jesus Christ. I was keeping up with payments at first. Barely. Then interest doubled. Then it tripled. Then they wanted something else. Her fingers curled into fists. What does that mean? I hesitated. She saw it. Adam, what else did you give them? I gritted my teeth. Information. Her face paled. On what? Clients. Business contracts. Anything valuable. She was shaking now. You sold people out? I didn't have a choice. She let out a broken laugh. That's why you created Lucas Carter. You needed a fake identity to move the money, to cover your tracks. I gripped the wheel harder. Yes. She leaned back, staring at the ceiling. How much time do we have before they come for us? I checked the mirror again. The street was empty. But that meant nothing. Not much. She closed her eyes, exhaling shakily. And if we run? I took the next turn, pulling onto a dirt road that led away from the city. Then we run forever. She let out a slow breath, then finally said, then we don't run. I glanced at her. What? She turned to me, jaw clenched. You lied to me for months. You put me in danger. You put Noah in danger. And now you want me to disappear with you? I didn't answer. She shook her head. No, I'm not running from this. You're going to fix it. I swallowed hard. There's no fixing this, Sarah. She held my gaze. Then there's no coming back from it, either. Her words sat heavy between us. The road stretched ahead, endless. And for the first time, I realized I had no way out. Sarah wasn't afraid anymore. That was the part that scared me the most. When she had first found the bank records, when she had connected the dots, there had been panic in her voice, uncertainty in her eyes. But now, sitting in the passenger seat of my car, staring at the empty road ahead, she was completely calm, like she had already made a decision. I slowed the car, pulling off onto the shoulder. She didn't ask why. She just sat there, waiting. "You don't understand what you're saying," I said finally. "I understand more than you think." "No, you don't." I turned to face her. "If I try to fix this, I either pay them or give them something more valuable. Do you know what that means? Do you know what they'll ask for next?" Her hands tightened on her lap. "So what? We just disappear." I looked past her, at the stretch of road leading back to the city. If we left now, if we drove until the gas ran out, we might have a chance. It wouldn't be a good life. We'd always be looking over our shoulders. But at least we'd be alive. She was watching me. "You already thought about running, didn't you?" I didn't answer. Her jaw tightened. "You were going to leave. Without me." I didn't have the strength to deny it. She shook her head slowly, then reached for the door handle. I caught her wrist before she could step out. "Sarah, don't." She pulled back, eyes flashing. "No, Adam. You don't get to tell me what to do anymore." I let go. She pushed the door open, stepping onto the dirt road. I followed, closing the gap between us. "Where are you going?" She turned back. "Home. They'll be watching." "Then let them." I stared at her. "Are you trying to get yourself killed?" She laughed bitterly. "You already did that for me." I exhaled sharply, rubbing a hand over my face. "Sarah, listen to me. If you go back, if they think you're a problem, then maybe I should be." I stepped closer. "What does that mean?" She held my gaze. "You think they only care about you? You think they don't have other loose ends to deal with?" A cold wave settled over me. "What did you do?" I asked questions. I grabbed her arm. "Who did you talk to?" She didn't flinch. "Someone who had more to lose than you." My pulse hammered. "Sarah, they don't want attention, Adam. They don't want a mess. And right now, I have enough to make this very messy for them." I felt sick. "You're bluffing." She didn't blink. "Am I?" I loosened my grip, stepping back. I had spent months lying, hiding, convincing myself I had everything under control. And in a single night, Sarah had done the one thing I had been too afraid to do. She had made herself a bigger problem than me. A car approached in the distance. Headlights cutting through the darkness. Not speeding, not slowing. Just moving toward us. I looked back at her. "Is this your way of getting us both killed?" She crossed her arms. "If I wanted to die, I wouldn't have fought this hard." The car got closer. I could make out the shape now. Not the same one from the gas station, but familiar. Sarah's voice was steady. "You want to fix this? Then start now." I stared at her, then at the approaching car. And for the first time, I didn't know which choice would get us killed faster. The car slowed as it neared. The tires crunched against the gravel, deliberate, calculated. I could feel Sarah standing just behind me, her breathing steady, her body still. She wasn't running. She wasn't panicking. I was the one who had brought this on us, but she was the one who had turned it into something else. Something bigger. The driver's side door opened. A man stepped out. Not the same one from the cafe. Younger, sharper. Dressed too clean for someone in this kind of business. His hands were empty, but that didn't mean anything. He looked at me first, then his gaze shifted to Sarah. "You made a call." His voice was even, unreadable. Sarah didn't flinch. "And I'll make another." The man tilted his head slightly. That would be a mistake. So was lending Adam 300 grand. But here we are. I wanted to pull her away, tell her to stop, to let me handle this, but it was too late for that. She had inserted herself into this mess, and now she was playing a game neither of us fully understood. The man exhaled slowly, studying her. "You think you have leverage?" She didn't answer. He took a step closer. "Who did you talk to?" Sarah held his gaze. "You already know." A flicker of amusement passed over his face. "You have guts. I'll give you that." He turned his attention back to me. "You should have paid what you owed." I clenched my fists. "I just need time." "That's what you said last month. And the month before that." Sarah's voice cut through the conversation. "You're not getting another dime from him." The man glanced at her. "That's not how this works." She crossed her arms. "It is now." There was a long pause. The air between them was razor thin. Then he smiled. Not amused. Not friendly. The kind of smile that let you know you just made things worse. "You're bold," he said. "I respect that." He turned back to me. "But respect doesn't clear debts." I took a step forward. "If we leave now, if we disappear, It ends here. The man chuckled. You think I believe that? You think I trust that you'll just walk away and never look back? Sarah spoke before I could. Then let's make a deal. The man looked at her again. You have nothing to offer. She reached into her pocket and pulled out her phone. I have names, transactions, records, and I know exactly who to send them to. His expression didn't change, but I saw the shift. The calculation. The recognition that she wasn't bluffing. Where did you get them? He asked. Sarah didn't answer. He studied her for a long moment, then let out a quiet laugh. You two are something else. He turned to me. You picked the wrong woman to lie to. I didn't say anything. The man took a step back. You want out? Fine. Here's what happens next. He gestured at Sarah's phone. You don't send that anywhere. You don't talk to anyone else. You erase everything. Sarah held her ground. And in return, you're free. No more debts. No more visits. His voice dropped slightly. But if I hear so much as a whisper that you've been running your mouth, if I get even the smallest reason to think you're a problem again, this ends differently. Sarah didn't blink. Understood. The man looked at me one last time. You got lucky. He turned, got back into the car, and drove away. We stood there in silence, watching until the taillights disappeared. Then Sarah turned to me, her expression unreadable. Drive me home. I opened my mouth, but there was nothing left to say. I got in the car, started the engine, and drove. Sarah didn't say a word the entire drive home. She sat with her arms crossed, her phone still in her grip, her gaze locked on the road ahead. She wasn't shaking. She wasn't crying. She wasn't even angry, not in the way she had been before. That scared me more than anything. Because Sarah was a woman who felt everything deeply. And right now, she felt nothing. I pulled into the driveway, turned off the car, and just sat there. The house was dark. Noah was still at Mike's. The silence stretched between us, suffocating. She unbuckled her seatbelt, opened the door, and got out without looking at me. Sarah. She didn't stop. She walked up the steps, unlocked the front door, and disappeared inside. I followed, closing the door behind me. She was already in the kitchen, standing by the counter, her fingers pressing into the edge of the marble. I knew that stance. It was the way she braced herself when she was trying to hold something in. I didn't want this, I said quietly. She let out a sharp breath, shaking her head. Then what did you want, Adam? I swallowed hard. I was trying to fix things. She let out a dry laugh. Fix things? You lied to me for months. You stole from our future. You put our son in danger. And you want me to believe this was all about fixing things. I took a step closer. I didn't have a choice. Her head snapped up. Don't you dare say that. Her voice was low, furious. You always had a choice. You could have told me the truth. You could have asked for help. But instead, you lied. Over and over again. She clenched her jaw. I don't even know who I'm looking at right now. I exhaled, running a hand down my face. Sarah, I'm done. The words cut through me like a blade. I felt my whole body go still. What? She met my gaze, and for the first time, I saw it. Realization. Resolution. Not the kind that comes from anger, not something that would pass in a day or a week. This was final. I can't do this anymore, she said. Her voice didn't shake. I can't spend my life wondering what else you're not telling me. I can't lie to Noah about the kind of man his father is. She straightened, letting go of the counter. So I'm done. Panic climbed up my throat. Sarah, please. No, she held up a hand, stopping me. You don't get to beg. You don't get to make promises you can't keep. She looked down at her phone, then back at me. You're lucky I didn't send those files. You're lucky I didn't destroy your life the way you destroyed mine. I forced myself to breathe, to think, to say anything that would make her stay. We can fix this. She stared at me for a long moment, then said the words I already knew were coming. I don't want to. She walked past me, down the hall, toward our bedroom. The door closed softly behind her. I stood there, the weight of everything pressing down, the finality of it settling into my bones. The house felt different now. It wasn't mine anymore. Maybe it never had been. And for the first time since this started, I realized that the lie I told wasn't what destroyed us. It was the fact that I had never stopped lying. In the end, it wasn't the lie that destroyed everything, it was the moment I convinced myself that telling the truth no longer mattered.